Hi guys, this is I'm Stark and today we are looking at Vietnam again, and today we're going to look at the American tactics. Now this is the third episode of a series with 6 episodes in. So there are 3 main tactics of the Americans in Vietnam, and these are rolling thunder, chemical weapons, and search and destroy. Now we'll go through what they were and if it worked for each of them. And the first one we need to do is rolling thunder. So rolling thunder is extensive bombing raids on military and industrial targets. So it's a true fact that more bombs were dropped on North Vietnam than Germany and Japan in World War II. Now, this was a very expensive process, and it actually ended up costing the Americans $400,000 to kill one Viet Cong fighter. So if you think about that, that is an extremely high amount of money just to kill one person. Now this was launched on the 7th of February 1965 and this ended in 1972. So it's a very big tactic that was used, and if you see all the time, you may see when you link the Vietnam is loads of bombs and everything being dropped on Vietnamese. However, obviously it did have the problems. Now, it did damage the North Vietnamese war effort as it slowed them down. It did affect it. However, it couldn't actually stop the communists. It could only slow them down because they didn't manage to completely cut off their supply lines, which was the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And as well, if you think about it, which is the case for many of their tactics, they ended up killing a lot of innocent people because they were just bombing everywhere they could see in the hope that they were Vietnam fighters, when they actually ended up killing lots of innocents as well. Now, next one we're going to talk about is chemical weapons, and this is a very famous thing in the Vietnam War when you look at things like Napalm and Agent Orange. Now, so that's the first point I'm going to make, is all about how they developed these weapons like Napalm and Agent Orange. Now, Agent Orange we'll talk about first, and this was like a weed killer which destroyed the jungle, and the US used 82 million litres of it to spray thousands of square kilometres of the jungle. Now, if you think about Vietnam, a lot of Vietnam is just jungle, and it's very hard to spot Viet Cong fighters when you're just looking down and all you can see is the top of trees and everything. This meant that to try and strip down and try and see these Vietnamese, or the Viet Congs more specifically, they had to use these chemicals to try and strip them back bare. However, they did have many effects, and it's still said that nowadays it still gets birth defects because of the fact that it gets into the water supply, and this of course caused many illnesses in Vietnam, especially at that time. Now, the other one you knew is Napalm, and you may have seen a very famous picture with a girl who had to tear off her clothes, which is being shown in the picture below, and this is simply because of napalm. Now, napalm, basically what it did was it burned through the skin to the bone. Now, this is it was a disastrous thing because it was obviously very distressing, and but it did work at killing the Vietnamese. But obviously it came with many effects, especially on innocent civilians. So many civilians and soldiers were killed by these chemical weapons. However, it did help destroy the jungle. So in some respects, you could call it a success. Although I would say it's very much it's very debatable to call it a success, because it was obviously had many cons as well. Now, the last one we'll look at is search and destroy. And you may think, when you link Vietnam, you may think a lot about helicopters. And the search and destroy were where there was bases where US launched their attacks and helicopters were sent out. Now, they descend on a village and kill any Viet Cong soldiers they found. However, it wasn't actually that easy, because you go in a village where you may have some intelligence that there's Viet Cong soldiers, but of course, with every Viet Cong soldier, there might be 10, 20, even hundreds of innocent civilians you end up killing as well. So, they did kill some Viet Cong soldiers. However, there were some other major issues with it. So the raids were often based on inadequate information, so they weren't that reliable, and of course, as I said, they ended up killing a lot of civilians, which damaged their war effort, especially in the media, which I'll talk about another day. Then inexperienced US troops were used, which is another thing. My next video about the problems America faced, and these will be more I'm touching on in that video. Then these missions made the US very unpopular with peasants, and of course innocent people were killed accidentally. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and please watch my other videos if you haven't. I've already made 2 videos in this series all about the Viet Cong tactics and why the Vietnam War actually started, and I will have 3 more episodes coming up after. So thank you and see you soon. Bye.